This is Robbie Dillmore from the Christian Car Guy and Kingdom Pursuit, where we hear how God takes your passion and uses it to build a kingdom. Your chosen Truth Network podcast is starting in just a few seconds. Enjoy it and share it. But most of all, thank you for listening and for choosing the Truth Podcast Network.
This is the Truth Network. Welcome to Truth Talk Live.
All right, let's talk.
The truth is, I can't hide it, I can't hold it no more.
A daily program powered by the Truth Network,
This is kind of a great thing, and I'll tell you why.
where pop culture, current events, and theology all come together.
Speak
Your mind.
And now, here's today's Truth Talk Live host.
Could you vote for a convicted felon? What a question today on Truth Talk Live. I'm Stu Epperson. We are taking your calls all hour long. We have a legal scholar, a judge in the hot seat today to answer this tough question, and we're going to throw it at him. We're going to lay it on him, and he's going to answer and see. And what raises the ante, what raises the whole level of conversation is the fact that this is a talk show that has three prongs. It has current events, it has pop culture, and theology, which is the most important, I believe, little peg on the stool there, because the theology is what connects everything, because we are ultimately image bearers of Almighty God, and as believers, we're redeemed, and we are to look different, act different, and vote different. Now, with saying that, I'm not saying we don't vote for a convicted felon, but I'm asking the question, as a Christian, could you vote for a convicted felon? We know the news is out there. We've seen the trial. Donald J. Trump convicted on all these counts by a jury in New York City. And I'll read what one of my Instagram friends put up there. No felons for president. How horrible. If you can't join the military with a felony on your record, how can a person with a felony ever become commander-in-chief? So the toll-free number nationwide, if you want to join the conversation, I know you've been waiting to call on this all day, all week long. We're not going to hate each other. We're not going to get mad. We're going to agree to disagree maybe in some cases, or agree to not agree, or not agree to disagree. However that goes. I nuanced that multiple ways, Mr. Judge, but I'm telling you, this is a hot question, and it's not the first time it'll come up, not the last. We'll do a lot of shows on this because your faith is not divorced from how you vote and from who you vote for. We are to live our faith out in every aspect of our life, how we live, how we drive, how we talk, and how we vote. So you can say, well, I'm a believer. Well, I'm going to vote for someone who wants to murder our children in our country. Well, hold on a second. There's a little bit of a conflict. Well, is there one when it comes to voting for someone? Is there a conflict when it comes to voting for a convict? 866-34-TRUTH. Judge Phil Ginn is in the house. He's back again by popular demand.
Always good to be here with you, Stu.
Have
My
you any
pleasure.
idea, Sir Judge, what you stepped into today on Truth Talk Live?
Well, Stu, it's always a surprise when I'm with you. It doesn't matter.
Well, I say we just got to get it out there. We got to talk about it, and that's what we do on this show. We've got some amazing shows planned for this week. But before we get into the topic at hand, because you are a judge, I mean, you've reigned and ruled on a lot of big decisions, and you've sat on that bench, and that is you hold it in high regard, that duty and responsibility before God. Tell us about your background a little bit and how you ended up the fine president, the current president of Southern Evangelical Seminary, where you hold that wonderful leadership role of a great institution. Talk about how your story a little bit from judge of the land to a president of a very prominent seminary and Christian college.
Well, thank you. We are proud of what we do at Southern Evangelical Seminary. We're proud of the stance that we've taken, Stu, and really have been doing well over the last 2 or 3 years in comparison, particularly to some other faith-based seminaries and that sort of thing across the U.S. But I spent 22 years at every trial level of being a judge in North Carolina. Spent 10 years as a district court judge and 12 years as a superior court judge. And a good portion of that time, I was the senior resident judge, really in what was then the 8th Division, which stretched from Boone all the way down to Rutherford County and all the way west to a great state of Murphy. It's it's really interesting that I ended up where I am, and I certainly didn't intend to become the president of Southern Evangelical Seminary, but I was on the board, and we lost a president, and it was at a time where we needed one pretty quickly, and nobody else would take the job, so that's how I came to be.
Wow.
But it's been probably, as far as I'm concerned, the most important job I've ever had, up to and including being a judge.
Wow, and no doubt you're getting bombarded with questions as a
Sure.
judge. Because it's not just are you dealing out and teaching and exposing young students to the law of the Lord, but you are a judge in command of and adjudicating issues related to the law of the land for so many years. And so now you have the first time in history, a prominent presidential candidate of a major party. There's a two-party system pretty much here in this country, and he has been convicted. He's a felon. He could go to jail. Who knows what's going to happen? There's another judge, that's after him like crazy. Right. So how do you even begin to talk about this? Because I know the Christian worldview is the thing you push.
Absolutely.
And some folks may say, well, Judge Ginn, I mean, for Pete's sake, if you're a big C Christian, and we know that you are, and if Southern Evangelical Seminary is a big C Christian school teaching the Bible, teaching apologetics, teaching theology, teaching all the important hermeneutics and all the homiletics and all the things that a good seminary and Bible college teaches, then surely you would condemn any felon as president. You'd say, hey, you have to vote for the presidential candidate that's not a felon. But I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I've learned long ago to never address a judge and put words in his mouth or finish his sentence, or it could be hard time for you. And plus, they could walk down the hall. The boss could walk down the hall and say, Stu, adios, it's your last day on the air. But how do you handle this, sir? It's a complicated matter.
Well, and it certainly is a nuanced question, and it is what we used to call it in the courtroom. It's a pregnant question. It's not just as simple as it sounds. And so I think the first question you've got to answer in regard to this is, do you vote at all if you're faced with certain circumstances like we are now, where you actually have two presidential candidates, both of whom are challenged in many ways from a scriptural standpoint?
Right.
I mean, you just look at it, and certainly some of the things that Mr. Biden has done in his presidency are counterproductive to a biblical worldview.
So you're not going to be one of these guys that's going to come on and try to justify the behavior of either guy.
Absolutely. And at Southern Evangelical Seminary, we're not going to be in the business of telling people who to vote for. First and foremost, though, we are telling people, as Christians, we need to be involved in the system. So we don't have a choice to set it out.
Okay.
You got to look at it.
Okay, develop that for us a little more from a biblical worldview. You've written prolifically. You just had a big article hit the Christianity Today. Congrats on that. He is Judge Phil Ginn. He's in the house. The judge is here. The hanging judge is here. Could you vote for a convicted felon for President of the United States? We'll take your calls and more conversation after this on Truth Talk Live. I mean, there could have been more public exposure and talk and chatter, because there are a whole lot more channels now than there were at the O.J. Simpson trial. But Judge Phil Ginn, I'm Stu Epperson. Thanks for being on Truth Talk Live. The question of the day is, could you vote for a convicted felon for president? This thing was everywhere. I mean, you couldn't get away. I'm like, what in the world? I do not want to hear, and I don't want to hear salacious details. I don't want that to be I don't want my kids, my young ears in the car, the children, the grandchildren. And so you can do a little breakdown biopsy, as it were, of what, autopsy might be a better word of kind of that whole thing. You're a judge, you know how these guys think, you had juries, you've had the, both the counselors in front of you, you've had to do private sessions, you've had to ban certain types of evidences that were inadmissible and all these things. But Judge Phil Ginn, I want to get into that with you. I want to give the number for those of you who would like to weigh in on this question. Maybe you just had it with Donald Trump. There's no way in the world I'd rather vote for Adolf Hitler than a guy who's a convicted felon, or Karl Marx, who's practically, that kind of is the two tickets. But maybe you're like, I'd rather have a socialist communist than someone who's a convicted felon, who's a little bit mean, or a lot mean and vulgar and whatnot. And so all optics, all options are open. We're leaving the lines open for you to call in. The phone number is 866-34-TRUTH. Now, I'll say this. We're going to play this show back on my Best of Truth Talk weekend, which is on all kinds of wonderful friends all across the country and world. So if you're hearing this, then don't worry about calling in. But if you'd like to phone in and the show is carried live, the number is 866-34-TRUTH, 866-348-7884. Could you vote for a convicted felon? Donald Trump has been convicted. The sentencing's coming up. The sentencing happens to be even closer to the election. We have the hanging judge in the House. I say that just respectfully but jokingly to Judge Phil Ginn, but it's an honor to have him. He's got a brilliant testimony for Christ. We've had him on before. You can go back and listen to that podcast, his testimony, how he became the founder and the current president of Southern Evangelical Seminary in Matthews, North Carolina, where we have 105.7 FM, great affiliate of this show. But Judge Ginn, give us a little bit of background as people are trying to frame, like, what in the world even happened? And was this court, you said off the air, I'll let you say it, about maybe being overturned, all that. Give us your 2 cents on this whole thing as a judge.
Well, let me go back first, Stu, to what we were talking about before the break. I think it's imperative for Christians to go vote. I don't think we have the option of sitting it out. When we render the things that are Caesar's, it means that we're to be good citizens. Good citizens go and vote. I don't want folks to get to the point where they just check out because they have this cognitive dissonance over, I don't want to vote for him and I don't want to vote for that, and so I'm just not going to go vote. I don't know that is an option for us. But going back to the trial, I would just have to say that certainly my experience has been in North Carolina and not in New York. And we used to laugh when I was in law school and things that came out of Louisiana and California were just aberrations. But now we've got aberrations to the standard of law that we used to know all over the country, including New York. Okay. And so I really don't see, in looking at this from a legal background, how the conviction is going to stand up. They got what they wanted. I mean, there's the show here of we've got a convicted felon, but the truth of the matter is that there's a lot of holes in the conviction that may or may not be standing up. For instance, there was a lot of irrelevant evidence that was allowed in by the judge. Just before that, there was a ruling where a case was overthrown because the judge had allowed in this irrelevant evidence. And in Mr. Trump's case, it was all this evidence about how he had relationships with other women and had paid them off and all of that sort of thing, which, by the way, is not a crime. It's not something that we want to brag about, and certainly not something we want a presidential candidate or a president to be involved with, but it's not a crime in and of itself. So in order to make it a felony, they had to go back and tie another crime in with that, which is basically fraud in the campaign, which Mr. Trump had already been cleared of, by the way, by the Federal Elections Commission.
Right.
And so they tried that back in. And here's where the problem is. You really don't have a unanimous verdict yet in New York. And by that I say when the judge charged the jury, he said, if you can find any crime over here, and if you find any crime, then you can find him guilty of this felony. Well, that means that the jury, if I'm sitting on the jury, I might think he's guilty of this crime. If you're sitting on the jury, it might be another crime at your mind. So we don't have a unanimous verdict about what crime he's committed. And so therefore we don't really have, at this point in time, a justifiable means that Mr. Trump actually knows what he was tried for.
Interesting. And you also have the this has all come out since this trial began. The clear evidence the judge is a big donor on the DNC side. His daughter apparently is a big fundraiser for Obama, Biden, all those folks. And there was a definite agenda, and it's been said by from the DA all the way down that my goal is to get this guy put in jail or put in prison. There's something about him that they loathe, they hate, and they want him behind bars, and they're doing everything they can, even if it's illegal on their part.
Well, I can promise you, Stu, that if a district attorney wants to find you guilty or at least to charge you with a crime, he can find a crime that any of us have committed.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. I tell people all the time, driving home this afternoon from wherever you are, you're going to commit some crimes.
Yeah.
And God forbid that you harm somebody
Right.
in the process. But we're going to all. It's just impossible. We have too many laws. We're back
Right.
to grain picking, the same as
Yes.
it was when Jesus was alive.
Okay, 866-34-TRUTH is a toll-free number nationwide. We've had some folks call in. We're having maybe a little problem with our phone lines, but try again, 866-34-TRUTH, 866-348-7884. You can also go to the Truth Network Instagram page, and you can post a comment there or DM me, and I'll ask it on the air of the good judge here who's with us, Judge Felon, the president of Southern Evangelical Seminary. Judge, so people are like, why is this important? Is this just like shock radio? What, you guys trying to get ratings? Well, let me say this. This is just the scratching of the surface of the stuff that's going to be thrown at these candidates between now and election time.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be, and so at some point, someone's going to say, well, I'm still going to vote for him and hold my nose. Well, will you hold your nose next month when a new allegation comes out? And if you're one of those that just watches the news or hear just because someone said it, then it's true. But at some point, you've got to decide policy versus personality. Why is that so important, Judge Ginn? Real quick, your take on that. I mean, because at the end of the day, you got two candidates, both of whom are vulgar, both of whom have reprobate tendencies and challenges, and so which one do you go with, the communist or the capitalist? The one that wants to kill more of our young, the one that doesn't, even though you got to kind of hold your nose on this one.
Well, Stu, I would say to you there's only one issue that ought to be paramount in a Christian's mind when it comes to voting, and that is, can the gospel be flourishing within this administration?
Okay, expand on that. Okay, talk about that some more when we come back. We'll talk some about the abortion, some of the other issues, and could you vote? Could you pull that lever for a convicted felon for president? It's front and center on today's conversation. We'll talk more and we'll take some calls right after this on Truth Talk Live. Looking at every angle, underneath every rock, and challenging people. We are comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable, as it's been said before. This is Truth Talk Live. I'm Stu Epperson. So glad to have you with us. So glad to have people listening to us on your smartphone. It just got smarter when you downloaded the free Truth Network app. And we have friends that listen all over the country, all over the world. I'm going to do a shout out to Rock, my new buddy I just met, actually at the dry cleaners. He was coming in, I was coming out. I gave him the card. I said, I'm going to give you a shout out. I was supposed to do it a little bit ago, but I did it. I'm doing it right now. So I said, that's his name, Rock. I like it. Anyone named Rock I can hang with. I like that name. The toll-free number, if you want to weigh in and call in on the question of the day, could you vote as a Christian for a convicted felon? 866-34-TRUTH. And why would we endeavor to consider and to converse about such a topic? Because it's an election year in America. And because, as believers, we are called to be stewards of our vote. So not voting is not an option if you're a believer, because you are not forced to vote, but you are a citizen. And you are told to engage in policy. And so what do you do if you're a believer when you got this vulgar guy who's now a convicted felon running for president, seems to be arrogant and prideful and all that? Like, well, I'm a Christian. He's not, and then all these guys that are calling him a Christian, they're acting like he's some sanctimonious poster child for the faith. And then so what do you do with the other side that's pushing a radical agenda of murdering our children and this communist socialistic spending nonsense is immoral? When you borrow more money you get paid back, that's immoral. Forgiving all this debt, that's immoral. Allowing illegal aliens to come in, many of whom are criminals, when it's legal to come in, if you come in legally, that's immoral. So who do you, but you got this convicted criminal over here. So weighing that out, we thought it might be good to bring in a judge. We didn't just bring in a judge, we brought in the judge. Judge Felon, the president of Southern Evangelical Seminary out of Charlotte area of North Carolina, and we're so glad you're here, sir. And you made a statement in the last little bit about how we're going to go in deeper into what are the issues of importance to people of faith in this election. And so I'm going to give the number one more time for those who can call in, and then I'm going to turn all eyes and ears and turn the whole microscope on you to answer that question. 866-348-7884 if you want to take a tackle at our question of the day. Could you vote for a convicted felon? 866-34-TRUTH. Judge Ginn, you were talking about the importance of religious liberty as we were going. You're saying how can that be one of the biggest issues? And then give some of the other axiomatic issues relevant as believers think about how they should vote this election.
Well, if you look at it scripturally, we're really asked to pray for and to work for peace so that we might have the ability to proclaim the gospel freely. That's our reaction to government. That's what we want government to provide for us. And so that's why I say that's the most important thing, because everything else emanates from that. Everything else becomes secondary to that, whether Mr. Biden is what we say he is or Mr. Trump's what they say he is. It doesn't matter. The big issue is, can we proclaim the gospel? The problem is right now is that it is becoming more and more difficult under the present administration to do that very thing. At SES right now, we're being forced into, or they're attempting to force us into, we're not going to go there, but they're attempting to force us into hiring gays and transsexuals in order to get any kind of federal funding. The only federal funding we take right now is from veterans. We believe the veterans have used have earned their benefits, and they ought to be able to get whatever education they want to with those benefits. But now Mr. Biden's administration is saying to us, you can't do that unless you comply with Title IV, which means you have to hire gays and transgendered individuals and folks that totally disagree with our time-honored beliefs as evangelical Christians. And so that's an issue. If we are not able to proclaim the gospel, which in itself is, well, I was accused one time of a lady by trying to form an exclusive club when I said that Jesus is the only means of salvation. And I responded to the lady, yes, ma'am, I guess I am. But the ironic thing is that everybody's welcome in my exclusive club.
You're all are invited, right?
Yeah, all are invited.
Yeah.
It's just some don't want to meet the criteria for it. And so, those are things that that I'm very concerned about, is the ability to proclaim the gospel, and they're trying to run the gospel back inside the walls of our churches, and so that it has no place in the public. And I think that's just a great danger for us as Christians and for God's kingdom on this earth.
Well, Judge Felon, isn't that at the essence of what makes America great?
Absolutely.
And is it interesting that, and this is going to sound to some people, you have to hear, let me finish my sentence before you cast judgment. But the fact that the best friend of the transgender and the radical Muslim or the moderate Muslim or the Hindu or the Jew, the whole scope of ethnicities and religious groups, the best friend is the evangelical Christian in America who's conservative.
It should be. Because
we are literally all about freedom. Come in and build your mosque and worship there. We're not going to storm it. We're not going to bomb it. We're not going to. When have you heard Christians out there calling death to Palestinians, death to Muslims, death to LGBTQ? You don't see any of that. You don't see Christians burning down abortion clinics. Occasionally there's a threat, and there have been some. We condemn that, but you don't see it by nature. But yet you have almost daily people calling out death to Jews, death to Americans, burning our flag, attacking these radical groups attacking. But the evangelical Christian, because our whole premise of our country is come in and worship as you like, and in the marketplace of ideas, have conversation. But the left is censoring. It's so censorious of all the ideas. And if you say, like you said, that Christ is the only way, you should have the right to say that all day long. It doesn't mean that everyone has to do that, but it means you have the freedom of speech. But even that's going to become a crime. And certain legislation, like H.R. 56 that was in front of the Senate forever, it may still be up there, says that it's a hate crime to just teach the Bible that says certain lifestyles are sinful. We're not making those illegal. You're still free in America to do really whatever you want, but to have an opinion is now being censored. So, Judge, talk about that critical pillar of freedom that is slowly being stripped away.
Well, you know, the First Amendment to our Constitution is not freedom of speech, although the freedom of speech is mentioned in the First Amendment. The first freedom that is mentioned in that First Amendment is the freedom of religion. So obviously, that became a very, very important thing for those who would seek to really get the Constitution ratified. But here's some examples of what I'm talking about. I wrote in an article lately. It's the way people look at things. You have Black Lives Matters riots and occupations of government buildings and destruction of private property. Those were labeled as mostly peaceful protests. 75-year-old grandmother blocks access to an abortion clinic. She gets 2 years and a conviction as a felon.
And she was being peaceful.
And she was being peaceful. If you yell death to Israel or America, that's protected free speech. But if you misuse preferred pronouns, that's hate speech.
And people are losing their jobs right now
Absolutely.
in California who have called a he, a she, or he, or she. I'm not recognizing that. You're a dude trying to go in the girls' locker room. We know why. But because you feel, because you're saying you're a she, now we have to change what we call you. And that those teachers are getting fired.
And check this one out. Celebrating and promoting even deviant sex in front of small children. That's called education.
Yeah, drag shows and all this.
Yeah. Parents protesting age-inappropriate sex training and grooming of their children. That's terrorism. And so we go on down the list. I mean, that's just a drop in a bucket of what we're seeing. And so there is a full-blown attack on Christianity and the ethics of Christianity and the morality of Christianity right now in America.
So someone says, look, this guy's a convicted felon now in New York. I mean, I saw the trial. I heard the judge. I mean, this guy's done. He's going to go to jail. I'm not voting for a candidate for president who's going to, who's convicted and, and all that stuff. No way, Jose. What do you say to someone like that?
I just say weigh the totality of the circumstances, first of all. And I'm not, again, you may do that and still decide to vote for somebody other than Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That's fine. But I think we need to be a thoughtful electorate and to look at everything. And we need to look at it through the lens of a biblical worldview that is there. The sad part about it is with the conviction of the felony, they could have done this 3 or 4 years ago.
Right. Quite a long time ago. Like they waited until an election year.
And that would have
and the events of that affair were before he was even running for office, going way back.
That would have given plenty of time for all of the appeals to take place, and we'd know for sure.
No justification for any evil, by the way, but what do you do when someone's done evil and they're running for president? Could you vote for a convicted felon? We'll take more calls, and we'll ask the judge here why his seminary is not woke. And what does woke even mean when we come back on Truth Talk Live? Hang on.
Truth Talk Live.
We've been kicked off the Leesburg Gray campus because we're not woke.
What in the world does it mean to be woke? If you go woke, are you going to go broke? It's kind of a new little, maybe not a new phenomena, but it's definitely a new phraseology that's been entered in. And churches are going woke. Churches are dying and struggling, and you got all kinds of folks that are battling with this issue. And we're gonna introduce that in this segment. I'm Stu Epperson. This is Truth Talk Live. With me is Judge Phil Glenn. He is the president of Southern Evangelical Seminary. It's an honor to have him in. He's been on before. It's great to have him back. We've got the First Lady in the house, too. Good to have her with us. And I just offered her Vinetastic. How about that? I'm going to have to take a little sip of this just to get me through this last segment. This is tough stuff. I mean, we're asking the question, could you vote for a convicted felon? Okay, so you're like, Stu, come on. Well, no, you come on. It's all over the news. So we're going to talk about it from a Christian perspective. How does a believer handle that? 866-34-TRUTH. If you want to call and weigh in, we got the judge in the house. We had to have someone on the bench to make some calls on this tough topic from a Christian worldview standpoint. One candidate, all this scandal, vulgar. The other candidate, maybe not so good on policy, wants to kill our young and all this awful woke stuff. And so what does a believer do when it comes time to cast that vote? We've got a little time, but we're talking about it from a Christian worldview standpoint. And we're thankful for our friends at Vinetastic. This is just a brand new drink. I'm just looking at the label here. It says it's got the science. They don't sell sizzle or fizzle. They sell the science. Cellular health antioxidant beverage. Those are some big words for a basketball player like me. I spent more time in the gym, Doc, than I did in the classroom. But this is their no sugar, no calories, no carbs drink that's loaded with antioxidants. And I'm going to delicious. They got a couple flavors. This is the pineapple mango, and I think that's what your wife is drinking right now. Pretty good stuff. But their aim is to bring health awareness to everybody. And they've taken the most valuable parts of the muscadine grape, the seeds and the skins, and they put them in capsules. They put them in this delicious little drink, and they put them in little energy shots that have all the energy of 5-hour energy without all the chemicals that a lot of these energy shots have. And they have the juice that y'all love. I promised you guys I'll send you home with some juice for being on the show today. So mightymuscadine.com is their website. If you enter this promo code TRUTH, any products you order, you get a special discount, and it'll also let them know you listen to this show. And we're grateful for friends like LeBlue Ultra Pure Bottled Water, which is the founder of mightymuscadine.com, for partnering with us, helping us continue to advance the good news of Jesus Christ on the radio. mightymuscadine.com is their website. Promo code TRUTH is the promo code for the special savings. And thank you, Jerry, Judy, Candy, Kathy, all the team, Brock, and everybody at mightymuscadine.com. And be sure you make some noise with them. Tell them thank you for partnering with us. I like to go out of my way to support Christian-owned businesses that are sponsoring Christian radio. Judge, we got to take care of these folks, man.
Well, absolutely. And I actually prefer the capsules.
No kidding.
Yeah, I've been taking the capsules, and of course this is anecdotal, but I can tell a difference, I believe, in those capsules. And if any of the sponsors are listening, I'm out, so we need to
make something happen there.
You could send some to me, but
we might have something down the hall for you.
No,
we got to take care of the judge. We got to keep him around.
I've got to reorder because I let my source run out. So, but I do recommend them. It's got resveratrol in it.
That's there you go. The French factor.
From the muscadine grape, which is special grape.
Well, I like the fact that I could take something like that, those capsules, not have any sugar involved, not have any alcohol involved, killing my brain cells, but get all the resveratrol. I mean, someone said you take 4 of those capsules, it's like you drinking a big bottle of red wine without all the sugar, the alcohol, and you can drive home afterward.
And then you can drink a bottle of the LeBlue water with it.
Wash it right down.
And wash it right down, and it's great. You got all the hydration and nutrition you need. Right
now, that wasn't planned. That was not planned. The judge is in the house. This guy has a breadth of wisdom on a lot of things, and I had no idea that he even knew about muscadines. But being a North Carolina boy, you know about those things, don't you?
Absolutely. That's only grapes we knew growing up.
Wow. Well, thank you, mightymuscadine.com. Judge Phil Ginn is with us. You're going to tell us what woke is. I want to ask you if you could vote for a convicted felon for president of the United States, the highest office in the land. And a lot of folks did not vote for Donald Trump in the last election. They're regretting it because of what we got. But they went with personality. They went with the nicer guy, the old, gentleman guy, as opposed to the mean orange guy. And they couldn't bring themselves to vote. And then some people said, well, I'm just going to write Mickey Mouse in there or Billy Graham or someone on the ballot because I'm going to vote independent. We know that's I don't know if that's an issue of moral or immoral. I think it's just an issue of kind of maybe not smart because we know that it's going to be one of those two candidates. Well, Judge Phil Ginn, as a believer, how do you think through this thing before we get to the woke question?
Well, first of all, I would say to you that probably only about 35% of evangelicals actually vote. And I think if you want to talk about immorality, right there's immorality, Stu. I'm sorry. I just want to call you out. I think we're called upon from a biblical standpoint to be involved and to set policies. We have that blessing in America that no other nation has ever had before us, where the common ordinary man can actually have some voice in what's going on, and your vote hopefully counts. And if enough people stand up for whatever's happening, whether it be in this election or an election that's come, and by the way, there are other elections more so than President of the United States. There's governors and lieutenant governors and senators and congressmen and all down even local town council people that need to be elected that are God-fearing people. So there's lots of reasons to go vote and to be a participant in this. And that's one of the reasons why you ask about this woke business. One of the reasons we're woke is because we've not participated in elections as Christians as we ought to.
Yeah.
George Barna saying that less than 6% of Christians in America has a biblical worldview, and it's coming back to haunt us. Our churches have failed in just passing this information to our young people, and we've lost a generation or two. And we're all about this concept of this wokeness is about inclusion. And while we want to be inclusive, I guess if you want to use the broadest sense of the word, I think Pastor Sinclair Ferguson said it best. He said, God, it's really misleading to say that God accepts us the way we are. In fact, the more accurate way to say it would be God accepts us despite the way we are.
Wow.
And he doesn't intend to leave us the way we are.
Interesting.
He intends us to change us into a Christ-likeness through the grace of his Holy Spirit. And so when we talk about just embracing people regardless of whether or not they have a biblical worldview, or regardless, they may be living sinful lives, and it's okay, you can just continue in your sin and you come. That's just a blatant attack against what Jesus did at the cross.
Yeah. So you got two candidates. If you got a nice candidate who is all about killing our young, all about unrestrained recruiting folks in illegally from all these different countries, a lot of terrorists, a lot of folks from China are in here illegally that are fighting age. This is all documented. The cartels rampantly coming in, and they're controlling, and there's human trafficking and fentanyl and all that. But do you vote for the nice candidate who's for all that, or you vote for the mean candidate who's against all that, and he's for fighting for life, and he's for protecting our borders and protecting Americans and for a little bit of fiscal responsibility, but he's a mean candidate, and he's now a convicted felon. And you're a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ. What do you do?
Well, the first thing, and I've had some discussions about this. I'm not one of these people that takes pot shots at the president for his condition, whatever it may be. But here's what frightens me about that, Stu. I think we have people right now who are running this country as president, who have never been elected.
Yeah, he's not in charge. He is a puppet for whoever the forces are of. And I did a commentary. President Carl is in charge. Really, it's the socialist agenda that's pushing its way through, and he's a nice fellow that they're using to, so he'll be attacked tonight on Fox News for 3 hours, and all they'll do is say, this guy, oh, look what he said. Oh, he fell down the tarmac. Oh, look at that. He started wandering off. I think that's horrible. If you're a Christian talk show host, you don't make fun of anyone. I don't care what party. I don't care if you're against them. That is not Christian to do. Now, if you're a secular like these guys on Fox, that's fine. Go ahead, but I turn it off. I get sick of that because what do you expect? Poor old guy like that going through what he's going through, his health. He is not pulling the shots. He's not calling it, but there's an agenda that is literally trying to put men in women's bathrooms, that's trying to sexualize our 5-year-olds, and it's in destroy our borders. And so it's like, but you're getting all this stuff. It's just, how have we gotten to this point? How have we sunk to this depth, Judge Ginn?
Well, the real crime I think is being committed is whoever's pulling his strings.
Yeah.
I mean,
they know what they're doing.
They're guilty of elder abuse. I mean, they run the poor guy out there.
But they put, Gavin Newsom or someone who's even farther left, but he's nicer, and he could be our next president based on how it's going. He's not a convicted felon.
You look at Canada, and that's where we're going.
Yeah.
And there is a real lack of a religious liberty in Canada.
Yeah.
There is none.
Because when you take away religious liberty, anything goes, and everything
goes.
you say is you're going to jail. And your pastor may get hauled off for saying marriage between a man and woman. In fact, the Methodist Church is canceling all the pastors that say that now. Give us some hope, Judge Ginn. It's depressing, it's sad, but give us some hope and give us some eternal perspective as we wrap up the show today.
Well, the good news, I think, is that if you want to rebel against what's going on as a young person right now, you turn to Christ. And I'm seeing that with this younger generation. We go to a little church up in a college town. There's 22,000 kids. Only 5% of them are Christians, according to what the statistics will show. Yet we've got a couple of hundred come every Wednesday night to Bible study, and it's spreading like wildfire. And these folks are hungry. This next generation is hungry for meaning in their lives, Stu, and we have the ability to give it to them, and we just need to do that.
Very good. Learn more about the judge. What's the best website, sir? If you learn more about you and your awesome seminary there.
www.ses.edu and truththatmatters.net.
Okay, listen to him. Look at his articles. He just had one hit Christianity Today. And think biblically. Go to the Lord. Trust Christ. Pray and vote policy, not personality, and vote your faith.
This is the Truth Network.